Alrighty, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the final major movie event of the year. I just got back from seeing Star Wars The Last Jedi, Star Wars Episode 8, the second installment of the sequel trilogy, the third annual Star Wars movie we've gotten. Oh boy. Normally with my reviews, I like to set the stage from where I'm coming from before I review a film. But for this one, I'm not going to do any of that. We're just going to dive straight into it. To say that I was disappointed in The Last Jedi would be a pretty damn big understatement. I'm going to go so far as to say that this is probably one of the least entertaining films in the entire Star Wars saga. And I already know from that statement, a lot of people are going to be rubbed the wrong way, especially considering we've had a lot of bad Star Wars movies. But sit tight, watch the entire review. Hopefully you guys will understand where I'm coming from with this video. Because I, like many people, was extremely excited for The Last Jedi for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, as a big fan of The Force Awakens, I loved where they were taking this universe. I understand that The Force Awakens is kind of polarizing to some people. A lot of people loved it, a lot of people enjoyed it. But there was an equal amount of people who felt that it was pretty much just a retread of what came before. A New Hope 2.0 is the phrase a lot of people have been throwing out. And while I don't necessarily agree with a lot of those criticisms towards The Force Awakens, I can totally understand the fear and skepticism some people had going forward in the future, because if The Force Awakens was great, it made over $2 billion, logic would dictate that the studios would essentially give you what works. And if retreading is what works, then hey, might as well make The Last Jedi a retread of Empire. Yeah, they really didn't do that, which is probably my only positive aspect I can say about The Last Jedi. This is not really a carbon copy or even an inversion of Empire Strikes Back. It's something completely different, and by completely different, I think that it commits one of the biggest sins in the Star Wars saga, and that has to do with it being pointless. It being shoehorned, it just feeling like nothing here mattered. Nothing here was a next step up from The Force Awakens. And this is why I say it was one of the least entertaining movies in the saga, because even though I hated all the prequels, I could still find some enjoyable aspects out of, well, episode 3, the only episode that matters. With this movie here, I'm sitting back and I'm watching it, and it's 2.5 hour runtime, and I'm just like, does anything in this movie really matter? Does anything here really grow the seeds that were sowed in The Force Awakens? Is anything here creating and crafting longevity for the Star Wars universe, for the canon, for the next installment being episode 9? Nothing. If anything, this movie leaves you off with more questions than answers, and the answers that it does give you, they're not really answers you wanted. And by that, I'm not saying, oh, it's not what you expected, you fanboy. I'm saying that they literally just squash all of the potential plot threads that J.J. Abrams sowed in The Force Awakens. Now, I'm not really getting to too many spoilers for this video. I'll save those for later on. But as it stands, if you liked what you saw in The Force Awakens and were excited to see where it goes, this movie kind of closes the door on a lot of those plot points. And it just feels like the best way I could describe this feels like a 2.5 hour long anime filler episode of Naruto, where the stuff you're watching in here, oh, it's got the characters, it takes place after the last major episode. Like, you know how episode 135 or 136 was the battle with Sasuke, and then just goes straight into filler, but it's trying to seed in some canon stuff into that filler? That's what The Last Jedi felt like. It honestly did. And for that sole reason, you know what, man? Fuck it, I gotta get into the spoilers. I'm sorry, people, you wanted a spoiler for your review, but I cannot properly express my feelings and emotions toward this movie without getting into spoilers. TLDR, I didn't like the movie because it was pointless. But the spoiler section, you'll understand why. So the movie opens up, and I was kind of excited because, you know, it opens up in a very Star Wars sense. It's opening up with a space battle. It's opening up with the conflict of the rebels versus the First Order. And I'm just sitting there in my chair. I went all out for the IMAX. And I'm just like, yes, man, this is what I see. You know, Poe Dameron, the best, you know, fighter pilot in the galaxy. He's going up against Hux. This is going to be awesome. And I was watching that space battle and I was bored. I was bored out of my mind, which you shouldn't be in a Star Wars movie. Like, even the prequel movies, like the 45-minute lightsaber battles they had in episode 3, while it was kind of way overblown and overdone, those were still more entertaining than the space battles here. They just kind of felt like, been there, done that. The stakes really weren't raised with those battles, even though they're trying to make it seem like it. And the more and more the movie went on, the more I was like, what purpose does this movie have? Like, what is this movie trying to tell me? Is it trying to be a sequel to The Force Awakens? Is it trying to expand upon that? Because it's certainly not explaining things. And everything here just felt like they were trying to like artificially fill the 2.5 hour runtime. Because there are a lot of scenes in this movie that just are kind of there and they serve no purpose. Like it's like Empire in the sense that all these characters go on separate campaigns to do things, but it's not really organic because they don't all meet up back in the end and it actually makes sense. Take, for example, Finn and this new character, Rose. One of their tasks in the movie is to basically take down the tracker on the First Order ship. And you would think that, okay, this is something perfect because it's giving these smaller characters, you know, time to shine. They don't necessarily have to be in the forefront of the battle. But their entire campaign was pretty useless. Like, by the end of it, they didn't achieve anything. There was no major character development for any of these characters going on these separate campaigns. I'll go so far as to say that if you were to cut out some of the stuff happening with Finn, Rose, and the newer characters they introduced, nothing would have changed in this film at all. At all. But the worst part about it is they're trying to make it feel as if it matters. They're trying to make it seem like hope of the rebellion is not just Luke Skywalker. Hope is the fire that burns within everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. But it could have just been handled so much better because these characters really didn't do anything. They didn't get much time to shine. My homie Finn, you know, I liked him in The Force Awakens. I thought he was great, but I wanted to see the next evolution of his character. In this movie, he didn't get anything. Like that badass fight you saw in the trailer with Phasma? Nope, nothing. It's barely longer than the trailer. It just ends just like that. And again, Captain Phasma, another character who was wasted in The Force Awakens, is wasted even harder in this film. You would think after 2 years of waiting, Phasma is pissed at Finn. Like, she's ready to, you know, knock this nigga off his feet. Nope. In a way that's worse than Boba Fett, Captain Phasma goes out. Or maybe she isn't dead. Maybe they'll save it for like a book or something. Because you know how the Star Wars universe is. No one's really dead. But she was a waste in this movie. Finn was a waste in this movie. Rose was a waste in this movie. The new character, the Codebreaker, played by Benicio del Toro, he was a waste in the movie. So many characters in this movie just didn't need to be there. It just felt like they had to have a checklist of people. Okay, so we need to have Finn do something. This new character, we gotta have them. Phasma, people were pissed off at Phasma, so we're not gonna do anything with Phasma, so yeah, forget about Phasma. Oh, but Benicio del Toro, yeah, he may be Snoke, maybe Snoke. Oh, let's talk about Supreme Leader Snoke for a second. Okay. Going back to The Force Awakens, I understand some of the complaints people had. Like, they felt like, oh, he's just going to be the next Palpatine. But when the director, the writer, the actor, my homeboy Andy Serkis, when they come out and say, if you thought Palpatine was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. When you hype up this character, the Supreme Leader, who's so menacing in The Force Awakens, and you add this extra layer of mystery to him, like he's not just this snarling guy in the back. Yes, dark side, Kylo, dark side, scavenger, it's better. No, when you add that level of complexity and mystery to him, and say you're gonna complete Kylo Ren's training, the scavenger resisted you. I'm sorry, I just love quoting that movie so much. When you say that this character is going to be bigger than you've ever seen before, and to have him be killed off in the most anticlimactic way possible, it felt like you were trying to do a Return of the Jedi, but you didn't earn the Return of the Jedi portion of what made the Emperor great. If you guys understand what I'm saying, like they're trying to do these things in Return of the Jedi that were warranted and had such a shock value to it, like, oh, Vader turned good. Whoa, this is insane. He was good towards the end because he didn't want his son to die. And here it was like, oh, Kylo Ren turned good. Whoa, he wasn't. Wait a minute. Kylo Ren was never really bad in the first place. He was just conflicted and he was broken. And all throughout this movie, you still see that he's a broken soul. So him doing something like that is really not that surprising. And just like that, Snoke goes out. You don't really get to see him do anything crazy or sinister. You don't learn anything more about him. Sure, he's got a couple of good lines and some good scenes using the Force to whack Rey on the head with her lightsaber, but that's it? That's it? This is the character that you were building up? Fulfill your destiny. That character? I'm sorry, no, that is a complete waste. And here, I already know some people are going to say, well, they might bring him back in the future. You never know, the Force and the dark side. And, no, I'm pretty sure that dude just got sliced and you saw the body fall off. And speaking of characters that were wasted, Hux, man. Come on. Hux in Force Awakens had a badass speech about the First Order and how they were going to terminate and exterminate the rebel scum. Here, he's comedic relief. He's the butt of everyone's jokes. He's just there to get thrown around. Really, you were building up these characters in one movie and then you just shit upon them in this one. Awesome, excellent. I'm excited to see where episode 9 goes. So the villains were a complete waste in this movie. You don't learn anything attached to these characters from them. Kylo Ren, what did we get about Kylo Ren in this movie that we didn't see in The Force Awakens? That he was unstable? Been there, done that. Now he wants to rule the galaxy. He wants to burn everything down because he cannot trust the Jedi. He cannot trust the Sith. He cannot trust the light. He cannot trust the dark. So everything's just got to burn to the ground and be rebuilt. Oh, that's totally not corny and out of left field. Great. Awesome. And then we get to some of the biggest offenses I've had in the entire movie. And this has to do with the legacy characters. This has to do with Leia, and this, of course, has to do with Luke Skywalker. Leia is the portion that I had a lot of problems with, but not as big as Luke. So we're just going to cover her real quick. Her in this movie, again, she's meant to be the character that inspires hope and faith in the rebellion. Like, you are more than a person, a figure. You are the spark that lights the fire of the rebellion. That's the quote that you heard all the time. And she was in this movie for like 5 minutes and she gets knocked out for the majority of it. But how she goes out, okay, I'm gonna paint the picture. You know how in the trailer where Kylo's having that monologue where he's saying he has to kill the past and let it go, and you were thinking, oh snap, he's gonna kill Leia. Well, he resists as usual, but the ship still gets destroyed, and Leia's just floating there in space until you see that she harnesses the power of the Force, and in the stupidest way, the cheesiest CGI, I'd say this is probably giving Mustache Gate Superman Justice League a run for his money. She just floats from the space into the shuttle, and she just knocks on the door like, hey guys, I'm still alive. Oh, I'm knocked out for the rest of the movie until she comes back to give another speech and for her to have a reunion with Luke. Excellent. Because that's totally what I want to see Leia do in this movie. Seriously. And it's just... Okay, I'll save this portion for why I'm kind of scared for episode 9. Now we move into my biggest offense, and that has to do with Luke Skywalker. Okay, arguably Luke Skywalker was one of the biggest selling points for the movie because he was one of the original characters who was probably going to have the most weight attached to him because he was the main character of the original trilogy, and he was going to shepherd a new generation of Jedi. When I say that Luke had the biggest character assassination in this movie, it's freaking ridiculous. They're trying to paint Luke Skywalker as this broken man who, because he made a mistake when he was training Kylo Ren, everything about the Force and and the Jedi and all this stuff, everything has to go. He's this hermit living on this island, on this deserted planet, just isolated because he does not trust the Force and what he was capable of, and yada yada yada. Basically the old man trope. And then you see the error of his ways later on after he's convinced that the Force is not yada 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 yada. You already know where this is going. And it's just like, really? This is the character arc for Luke. Luke Skywalker, a character who we got to know as someone who still believed there is light, there is good inside his freaking father, who he barely knew. And he felt it with the Force, and he's just gonna go against all that stuff because he felt the darkness in Kylo Ren, and he was corrupted by. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm having way too much fun. He felt the darkness, so he was gonna assassinate Kylo Ren because Snoke had already tarnished him. Wow, that's totally a Luke thing to do, and it's supposed to be some type of redemption for him because he saw the error of his ways. No, I'm sorry. That is not a Luke thing to do, especially considering how everything is just wrapped in such mystery and vague. And by the time you see Luke shine in the end of the movie for the final confrontation, it's a complete slap in the face to the character because Luke in this battle with Kylo Ren on this planet, it's not a battle. It's just a couple of dodging his lightsaber swings, and yeah, he gets pelted by bullets. But you want to know what the funny thing is? Luke does not wreck house. Luke does not show that he is this feared Jedi master that we've heard nothing about except that he is the top tier, like, biggest adversary to the First Order. Like, why does the First Order fear Luke Skywalker so much? You would think that in this movie you would see it, especially when he steps onto the battlefield alone. No, you don't see anything. You don't see this badass Jedi. You want to know why? Because Luke was never there in the first place. Luke was there by this weird Force vision, which I will say is kind of cool in the sense that you could transmit yourself and you could interact with the world and it seems believable. That was pretty dope. But he wasn't there. He wasn't. He was just sitting there, just meditating on the rock, and I'm just gonna bide them time so they can escape because the rebellion is bigger than Luke Skywalker. And yeah, no badass Luke at all. He just disappears at the end. Literally disappears at the end of the movie. Is he dead? Is he alive? Even Mark Hamill doesn't know. Luke Skywalker. We wanted to see, just why he was such a big adversary to the First Order. We didn't get that in this movie. It's just, this is the badass scene people were talking about. Luke was so cool. He didn't do anything. And again, I already know some people are going to say, well, you're just complaining because it didn't live up to your expectations. You wanted what was expected. Just because you wanted something that's expected doesn't mean it's a bad thing, because what they gave us was not good. And this is where I lead into where I feel where I'm just worried about the future of Star Wars in Episode 9. Because this movie, not only did it not do anything in terms of furthering the stuff from The Force Awakens, it shut the door on so many things that happen in this movie that if you're going to try to explain what happens here, there's just going to be no build up to this climax. You literally don't know anything happening in Episode 9. And some people right there think it's a good thing. No, that's not a good thing because you don't know where the future is going. You want to have a good idea. And you want them to get you excited for the future. Take Empire Strikes Back, since a lot of people are compared to it. Empire Strikes Back left on one of the biggest cliffhangers in cinematic history. You didn't exactly know where they were leading into Return of the Jedi, but you had a good idea. It left you with some pretty big, OMG moments. It was left on basically, just the state of helplessness. Oh my God, Vader is my father. All of us have been separated, and it seems like the Empire is going to win this no matter what. But here, it's just what did we get here that we didn't already know in The Force Awakens? That we got to stick together and truth and justice will prevail in the end? I'm sorry, that's one of the most common tropes you see. In this movie that was supposed to break new ground for the Star Wars lore because you don't know anything that's going to happen. It challenged the norm and defied all odds. No. No. No, if anything here, it adhered to a lot of the biggest tropes more so now than in any other Star Wars movies. And Rey, I'm gonna say, Rey was the biggest Mary Sue in this damn movie. Screw it, man, screw it. I didn't believe it in The Force Awakens. Now I believe it wholeheartedly in The Last Jedi. Everything here was just so, like, bro, she's fucking Naruto. She's fucking Naruto in this stage of her life, man. It's so freaking corny. So where does episode 9 go? Like, already they killed Luke Skywalker, okay? They killed Han Solo. What are they gonna do about Leia? Leia, the character is just gonna get written off in episode 9. We all know that because unfortunately, the late great Carrie Fisher is no longer with us. But to have her come back and just be not there in episode 9, even though she exists, like, what are you gonna do? Is she gonna be killed off screen? Like, here lies Princess Leia. I mean, we kind of killed her in the last movie, not really. But we're gonna kill her again here, or just not talk about her. You know what this movie feels like? It feels like the Dark Knight Rises of Star Wars movies. And y'all will understand what I'm talking about if you've seen Dark Knight Rises and you think about The Last Jedi more and more. Like, everything that was built up in the last movie is just kind of squandered here. And it's supposed to leave you wondering about what's going to happen in episode 9. Which again worries me because J.J. Abrams, he's going to have to work off of this in addition to trying to tell some of the stuff from The Force Awakens, which kind of leads me to believe that he's going to try to make it a retread of a past Star Wars movie, which he's going to get lambasted for again. Now you guys understand why I feel the way I do about this movie. Not only is it boring, in the sense that nothing really happens here that really expands the universe or is interesting, it just shits upon everything that has come before. And no questions from The Force Awakens were answered. Like I mentioned before, I already know some people are going to say, well, that's why it's a trilogy. You got to wait to hear about this and this. And No. This is the second movie. This is the longest movie to date. And you really got nothing much out of it. But it's because it was subversive and it was different than what you saw before. Yeah, we're somehow nostalgia-tards. Oh well. Hopefully the Han Solo movie doesn't suck. Ugh.